It has been 90 days since Apple started shipping the M2 iPad Pro, and to say the least, I am a fan. Now that's because I'm able to find new ways to incorporate the M2 iPad Pro into my day-to-day activities that were typically reserved for my MacBook Pro. Now if you were wondering whether or not the M2 iPad Pro is worth purchasing, you are in the right place, because in today's video, I'm going to give you my detailed insights over using it for the past 90 days. We're talking about the good, the bad, the ugly, so let's get started. What is going on, everyone? My name is Mike. Welcome back to the channel. Now, I've used the iPad Pro every day for the past 3 months, so there is a lot to unpack with my usage experience, so let's get right into it. Now, the video is broken down into different sections, and I have each one of those sections pinned right below the like button. So in case you want to skip around, come back to a section, share a section with someone else who might find it valuable, I got you. Now, the video is not a deep dive into the raw specs of the iPad Pro because really, you find that on Apple's webpage, and I talked about that in my initial review. If I were to simply regurgitate my initial review, that wouldn't do you or I any good. Now, if you find value in long-term product reviews like this 90-day review of the M2 iPad Pro, consider hitting the like button down below so it lets me know that I should produce more content that's structured around long-form reviews. It also lets YouTube know that people like you would find this valuable and they push it out to a broader audience. Now, that said, we're going to talk about how I approach using the M2 iPad Pro, but remember, many of the features that I talk about today are available on older iPads as well, and I want to get this out of the way right in the beginning. If you already own an A12X, A12Z, M1 iPad Pro, upgrading to the M2 iPad Pro is not necessary. That's not what we're talking about today. I'm not here to try to convince you that it is worth it. Really, the intention here is to give you an outline of what is good, bad, and ugly about the iPad Pro after using it on a daily basis for the past 90 days. Again, not trying to make you upgrade to the M2 iPad Pro because really, there's not a big difference between the A12X, A12Z, and the M1, kind of directionally speaking, versus the M2 iPad Pro. Now let's talk about my setup. I bought the 12.9-inch iPad Pro in silver with 1 terabyte of storage, and I added cellular for flexibility. Now, I know you're probably shaking your head saying, Mike, what are you doing? Why would you buy cellular when you can tether to your iPhone or maybe even your Android phone if you're like that? But here's my thought process. I really think that there is a cheat code that is unlocked when you have an iPad Pro, iPad mini, and you use it with cellular because it enables so much more flexibility to just open it up or unlock it and be able to use it right away without worrying about tethering it to your device. Again, I outlined my entire thought process, which I'll link in the card above here if you want to watch that video. But in my opinion, adding cellular to your iPad Pro, iPad mini, it makes it much more special. Now, regarding storage, I chose 1 terabyte. I have 16 gigs of RAM, and quite frankly, it is overkill for most people. I would not suggest getting a 1 terabyte version unless you know you have a use case where you can utilize or capitalize on the additional RAM, the additional storage. I think that most people are probably going to be good with 512 gigs of storage or less. I would not choose the 128 gig storage if I was recommending it to anyone. I would say that the OS today is about 10 gigs worth of storage, and I have about 5 gigs of system data, which kind of fluctuates depending on how you use your iPad. But either way, if you have about 15 gigs worth of data just for the OS, that really doesn't leave you that much storage, and you're buying your iPad Pro for 3, 4, 5, 6 years maybe. It is going to evolve and it will take up more storage space. So you want to think about that because you don't want to get yourself into a position where you need to either shuffle your data that you have on your iPad off of it, or you need to wipe it. Again, it's just kind of a pain when you think about the data management. So that's the pro tip I would give you in terms of choosing storage for most people. Now, at its core, no pun intended, the M2 iPad Pro and the processor, whether it's 8 or 16 gigs of RAM, is plenty powerful for most people, and it really tears through anything I could throw at it. I'm able to do all the things that you probably are buying your iPad Pro for. Knowledge worker activities, checking email, task management, photo management. I'm even able to edit video using DaVinci Resolve on there. It's overly sufficient for most people. When you compare it to other devices in the lineup, Pro doesn't necessarily mean professional. It just means this is the top tier or the best configuration that you can get. Now, the M1 iPad Pro was discontinued by Apple about 90 days ago. You probably still can find it. And if you're thinking about, whether you should upgrade to the M1 or the M2, I would say that, unless you're getting a significant cost savings on a higher tier model than you would actually purchase, so maybe on the 256 or 512 if you're thinking about the 128, which I wouldn't do. If you go one storage tier up and you're getting a significant difference in cost, maybe the M1 is probably the best choice for you because you're still going to you're getting more storage, getting more value out of it, so to speak. And one of the benefits is with the M1 versus the M2 iPad Pro is that the amount of data that can actually traverse the M2 processor is much bigger. You get the ability to process more data at faster rates, which makes the M2 iPad Pro, I think, a little bit better depending on the use cases that you're going to use. If you're going to use it for just traditional knowledge management worker activities, you're okay getting the M1. I would say the M2, definitely think about getting it if you are in photo management, video editing, some type of modeling. That is where you're going to find benefit in the M2 iPad Pro. Now, in terms of use cases, there are 3 use cases that I want to solve with the M2 iPad Pro. First, I want it to absorb some low-level, I would say like less technically complex use cases that I might use my Mac for, right? My MacBook Pro. Second, I spend a lot of time in my office, so I want to be able to leverage my M2 iPad Pro as kind of the core or the heart of my desk setup. And third, I want to use the M2 iPad Pro anytime that there is a size or an input method advantage to the iPad Pro when compared to a traditional computer. In terms of how I decide what device I'm going to use, I really look at 2 different components, time and context. In terms of time, anything less than 15 minutes available, I'm going to use my iPhone because that offers the least amount of friction in accomplishing those tasks. That's how I think about it. If I am 15 minutes up until about an hour, I'm going to use my iPad by itself. Anything more than an hour, I'm going to take my iPad and I'm going to connect it to either my external display or I'm going to go to my Mac depending on the task itself. So those are really how I parse my work and think about what device I'm going to pick up. Really, we have an unlimited number of tools at our disposal, so picking the right tool can be the difference between being effective at something and being efficient at it. So if I need to make a quick edit in Lightroom, for me, it's the easiest to use the Apple Pencil 2 with the iPad Pro and edit a banger right and post it right to Instagram. It's very simple. By the way, if you want to follow me on Instagram, my username is @Caputo. Whether you are using this as a standalone computer or you're using it as an adjunct to a traditional computing experience like on a Mac, I found that the 12.9-inch iPad Pro easily integrates into my desk setup for that little bit extra of oomph. So when I sit down at my Mac and I need to do something, I might have it in the stand that it's in right now. I might actually put it in front of me in a different stand, but it's all about making sure that when it's time for heads down productivity, the iPad Pro is parked really right in front of me and I'm using it maybe to kick off parts of my workflow, maybe to set a shortcut, maybe to turn on the lights in my studio. I'm using it for all those things where it's not that it's not possible with the Mac, but it just feels more natural on the iPad. And I think that's the difference where it's not a this or that experience with the iPad and the Mac. And I think it comes down to that when you talk to a lot of people who are very passionate about the iPad, one enhances the other's experience and it's complementary. And I think Apple's moving in that direction now. You could see the way that they've changed their messaging over the past couple years with the iPad and the Mac. Because the M2 iPad Pro is so similar to the M1 iPad Pro, a lot of the same problems that I had with the M1 iPad Pro still persist with the M2. I'm talking about battery life. I don't necessarily get that good at battery life. Battery life is about 6 to 8 hours on the high side, 3 to 4 on the low side, depending on what you're doing. The backlight consumes so much energy and it's kind of frustrating depending on how often or how much you use the tablet. Second thing is that outside of the tablet itself, the operating system is not as robust as it should be. When you think about what Apple's able to accomplish with the Mac, there should be more features where the iPad can be utilized for heavier workflows with the additional features that it has. But what makes the 12.9-inch iPad Pro, I think, that much more exceptional is the features that it has in comparison to the other iPads in the lineup. So the display of the 12.9-inch iPad Pro makes it really, really nice to either consume content on it or to create content on it because iPad Pro has all of those additional features over and above every other iPad in the lineup. It's really the productivityist's iPad. Now, it's certainly feasible to accomplish serious work, as I use air quotes there, on the iPad Air 5 or the 11-inch iPad Pro. But the downside to those devices with a smaller screen is that your ability to multitask either in split screen or in Stage Manager just makes it that much less comfortable. And I think that you probably will have a harder time multitasking. Not to say it's not possible, and not to say that those devices are not great. I love the 11-inch iPad Pro. I wish I would have kept mine. They don't fit into my workflow specifically as good as the 12.9-inch iPad Pro. For you, they certainly might, and if that's you, let me know down in the comments below. But for me, the 12.9-inch iPad Pro and the size of the screen and quality of the screen, the quality of the display is just that much greater on the 12.9-inch iPad Pro, enough to where it pulls me from the 11-inch iPad Air 5, 11-inch iPad Pro into the 12.9-inch iPad Pro. And that's just how it is depending on what your workflow is. And that's the thing that you'll have to think about. How do I use this device and what really are the main components I'm looking to accomplish of your workflow and how you plan to use it. I would like to know what the most compelling feature for the M2 iPad Pro is for you down in the comments below. Now I have a playlist here talking about various tips and tricks with the iPad to help you be more productive. My name is Mike and I will talk to you in the next one.